Welcome to a walk down Main Street, where we'll take a historical look at downtown Plainfield, Indiana. We start our walk on the east end of town with Central Elementary. There's a reason the school has this name, and it's not because it's near the center of town. It's actually named after the Quaker secondary school, Central Academy. The first Central Academy was built in 1882. It burned down January 23, 1906. The fire started in the west room on the second floor and had likely ignited in a defective chimney flue. The school was quickly rebuilt the same year, and by September 1906, the students returned to find a very similar architectural design as the first building. Next door to the west of Central Academy is the Plainfield Friends Meetinghouse, with its wonderful lawn of trees that are beautiful when they're in bloom. The Meetinghouse was built in 1858, and you will soon see in 1860 a picture of the grounds when the trees were just planted and not as large as they are today. An early 20th century postcard also provides a view of the original building, but sadly in 1913, fire destroyed much of the Plainfield Friends Meetinghouse, although in this picture you can see that they were able to save the pews. The building was rebuilt using the original framework and then added to both in 1950 and the year 2000. The Plainfield Friends Meeting also is home to the Plainfield Farmers Market. Continuing along the south side of Main Street, we crossed East Street to find Dairyland Food Mart. This corner has a lot of history to it, and we're going to touch on a few things that it used to be. Originally, the corner was the site of the Tomlinson family home. The Tomlinsons built this home and used it as a boarding house for visitors to Western Yearly Meeting, which was an annual meeting that was held at the Plainfield Friends Church just across the street. It was also used as a general store. Next, it was home to Adna Moon's Standard Station, which you can see here in the 1930s. In 1971, it was used as the Quaker Car Wash, and then it was converted to Dairyland Food Mart, all in the same building. Next to Dairyland is the Quaker Laundromat. This marks the previous location of the Plainfield Bus Station, which provided local service to Indianapolis from Plainfield. Later, the Indianapolis Transit Company bus service housed its station here before closing the Plainfield, Indiana route for good in 1975. Right next door, the building that you see here is Floor Fashions, and this one also has quite a history. This building was built in 1905, and for many years it housed 3 businesses at a time, including grocery stores and a furniture store. But Deem's Restaurant was one of the 20 restaurants that was housed in this building. It was also home to the Busy Bee Cafe and the original Stacy's Restaurant. Across the street from Floor Fashions is the First National Bank. This red brick one-story building was built in 2004. Originally, the location was the site of Reagan's Corner, a grocery store, post office, and a central gathering place downtown. It was owned by Taylor Reagan and Caleb Carter. In 1930, the bank building was built, Reagan's Corner was moved, and this is the home of the First National Bank building. Eventually, this building expanded west, and then it was raised to build the current building. Now we're at the Next is the Knights of Pythias building, which you can see here. This is Plainfield's one and only skyscraper at the time. It was built in 1900 on the south side of Main Street. The lower level of the structure housed the dentist Chester Miller, the lawyer Horace Hanna, and multiple barbershops, as well as the Spot Cash Store, which was a long-running popular dry goods shop. The second story was used as the Plainfield Opera House, and it hosted various performances, both musical and dramatic, for the community. Next is the Pruitt Theater, and big things are coming to the Pruitt Theater. Plainfield residents remember seeing movies here before it closed in 2005, but not everyone knows that before it was a theater, it was the home of Pruitt's Motor Sales. Joseph Pruitt opened his motor sales and offered service to people traveling on US 40. In 1927, Joseph's son L.M. Pruitt opened the theater with the very first feature film shown there, No Place to Go, starring Mary Astor and Lloyd Hughes. The Pruitt became Cinema West briefly, and then the Village Theater in 1971. Next to the Pruitt Theater is the actual original First National Bank building. It was built as a bank and opened in 1904. Over the years, it has seen many things, including a very dramatic robbery in 1924. The bank remained at this location until 1930 when it moved east to 101, which we just saw. In the years since, the building has used for many purposes, including a funeral home and a dress shop. The Plainfield Masonic building has been a landmark on the southeast corner of Main and Center Streets since it was built in 1915. As well as the Masonic Lodge on the second floor, on the first floor it housed hardware stores, tire stores, and a series of restaurants. In 1940, it was the home to Morris Cafe, whose chicken dinners were only 60 cents. For the past 35 years, it has been the home to Shirt Tail's T-shirt shop. The building on the southwest corner of Main and Center was originally built in 1874. It was home to, first, the Hamlet House, and then the Mansion House. After that, Citizen State Bank and the Keeley Institute shared the space. The Keeley Institute was an early residential treatment center for drug and alcohol rehabilitation, offering in-room treatment for its residents, seen here. In later years, the lower level of the building housed insurance agencies and other various businesses. In 1916, Emmett Davis constructed the building that now houses the Real Food Shop as the Davis Motor Company Garage. Changing hands as a garage several times, it housed the town fire engine when it was owned by Fire Chief Edgar Milam. In the 1930s, twins Horace and Doris Dahm bought the building and started their Dahm hardware store, which remained there through 1954. After that, the building served as a car dealership for both Costin Buick and as the Waltz Dodge Service Center. Moving across the street to the north side of Main Street, we see the new construction of the expanded Town Government Center. Recently, this location was home to the Plainfield Fire Station and the Plainfield Chamber of Commerce. But before that, it was home to Howard Christopher's Auto Livery. Howard not only had a service station, but also a wrecking service. Somehow, he acquired a chimpanzee from the Belgian Congo, and this monkey would ride with him on the trucks and help with cables and hooks when they needed to tow something. In the interim, between the auto livery and the fire station, this was the location of Joe Knopp Ford, who most will remember had a memorable radio commercial in the late 1970s. On July 27, 1965, the Plainfield Board of Trustees purchased the property on the northwest corner of Center and Main for a new police station and town hall. This was originally the site of the Hiss Building, named for William Hiss, who operated a funeral mortuary in the building. When William Hiss died, his sister Emma inherited and used the building to house a Kroger grocery store. George and Daisy Edick purchased the building from Emma in 1943, and they moved the Plainfield Messenger newspaper printing company there. Although it has been renovated over the years, the town government has outgrown the current structure, and eventually this building will be razed, as was the Hiss Building. The buildings along the north side of Main Street between Center and Vine all date back to the late 1800s, and the library is fortunate to have many photos of these structures. Several barbershops, shoe repair shops, and dry goods stores occupied this area in the early days. Some of the early businesses along this stretch of Main Street include Bly Brothers Store, a second location for Kroger grocery store, and the Gates Cafe. Some other fondly remembered shops are Strafford's Pharmacy, Ellis Market, Elliott's Market, the Plainfield Variety Store, and Beecham's Department Store. The building at 112 and 114 West Main now houses the Vineyard Church, but was originally two separate stores. The west side went through many transactions, from groceries to 5-cent theaters. In the 1950s, it finally settled into life as a hardware store. The east side of the building was the home of Pruitt Dry Goods, and then the Publishing Association of Friends and the town post office, before C&E Drugs moved in during 1950. Around 1965, C&E combined the two addresses into one store. The next two buildings are easily missed. The smallest, at 110, began life as a saddlery, an insurance office. This big red building on the corner of Vine and Main is really hard to miss. In the late 1800s, it was home to Moses Tomlinson's photography studio, and you have to wonder if he took this picture and who was hanging out on the balcony. In 1920, Charles Simons moved his hardware store into this building, and after Charles died in 1935, his son LaRue Simons took over the family business. In that time, since, several businesses have occupied both the front and the rear of the building. Elite Hair Fashions was one of the longest-running tenants, along with the popular Nutmeg Tree gift shop. Across Vine Street to the east is a building that has been around since the time of the Civil War. For most of its history, it housed a series of hotels. First up was the Commercial Hotel, seen in this early photo. Then in 1915, it became the Hendricks Hotel. And for many decades, it was also known as the Van Buren Hotel, even housing the Plainfield Post Office at one time. It is now home to Headquarters Barbershop, and an interesting fact is that the east half of the building was built first and is the earliest part. The west half was built second. Moving on east is the White Building at 118, and it has long been home to Justin Dorsey Plumbing, but it too has a long history as a hotel. Originally a dwelling, it was added onto in the back and became known as the Worth Hotel, and later on the Old Trails Hotel. In 1940 it became the Grimes Hotel and Cafe, which it remained for 2 decades. Next to the former Grimes Hotel is Hardin Laundry, and also the home of Two Chicks Whiskey Business and Paw Street Bakery, also the home of the first Plainfield Library, and later Sinclair Service Station, and also Hill's Cobbler Shop. In the block between East Street and Avon Avenue is the newly completed Barlow Complex. Named after James Milton Barlow, a Plainfield Civil War veteran and state senator, the building features apartments above retail space. In the 1920s, the Van Buren Elm Filling Station stood here at 232 East Main. This building went on to house other businesses, including the Craig and Vaughn Machine Shop and Turner Refinishing. Other buildings in the block include Farmers Insurance, BrewLink, the Robert Hall Insurance Agency, Nomad Yarns, and Donovan Interiors. Just around the corner on Avon Avenue is Silvershire Styling Salon, was owned by Steve Hampton and Mark Tharp for decades. Back across US 40 from Central Elementary, where we started our tour, is the BP gas station. Pretty run-of-the-mill as this location now appears, it was once the site of a huge livery. The Stone brothers advertised the use of over 30 vehicles, including carriages, buggies, and road wagons, all of which were covered by one of the finest and newest barns in the western part of the state. Thank you for joining us on our tour today. If you have any questions, please contact the Indiana Room at the Plainfield Library.